5 artists that you feel like have been forgotten or constantly overlooked in conversations about R&B. So artists or bands. So I would like to offer my first pick would be Terrence Trent D'Arby.
Okay.
Now he had massive success with his album, and he had like songs like "Sign Your Name" and
Yeah, yeah,
"Wish You Well," and he was kind of poised to be the next big thing. But I think he
yeah,
kind of had a fallout with his label or something, and it kind of
yeah. I mean, one of my
stalled his
friends,
growth.
who I used to work with, he was an engineer on the album. Phil Legg here in London. So he because Terence is English and was he English? Yeah, he was. They did the album here in the UK. He was the engineer on the album. But the success of that album was massive. You know, he was
Mm,
global success, and he it just got to his head, and he was very difficult to. He got the whole old gang back to work on the second album, but he was just in a different space, and
right.
I think the labels, they put out the stuff, but the label of
So
love
he was
wasn't
his
there.
worst. He was his own worst enemy. He
Yeah, yeah.
self-destructed pretty much.
So
A
that's
lot of
yeah.
artists are arrogant, though. I mean, you know. Um, anybody you can think of?
You know, when you start thinking of how he's falling off, Music Soul Child,
Mm, okay.
he was celebrated, when the whole new neo soul thing came out, and we still talk Maxwell and D'Angelo, but Music Soul Child, he came out, was different, unique, but
Hmm.
then we just after about a second album, we just forgot. And it's quite hard with that type of the neo soul was good for minutes, but it didn't always have the commercial numbers to really
Right.
sustain the the balance. Like if we're not selling a good million or so, and yeah, so Music Soul Child,
Yeah, I think he got lost. I had this conversation. We had this conversation before about sometimes people are not bigger than a certain sound, and I think he got caught up in that whole neo soul moment.
yeah,
And I think that he actually, as an artist, I think he said this before. He didn't want to get boxed into that. He wanted to do other types of music because he's also done rap projects and different things that
mhm,
you know that a lot of people are like, "What are you doing?" But he wanted to experiment. He's clearly a art. He's clearly a creative person.
yeah,
Um, and unfortunately, like I said, sometimes the thing that people use to market you
mm,
may not be necessarily who you are. Like there was an artist named Glenn Lewis, I believe, that came out around that same period, but
yeah,
he didn't really want to go the neo soul route, but that's what his label felt like would be the best thing, and it he got stuck with that stigma of just being a neo soul artist. He couldn't break away from it when that movement kind of died out. So yeah, Music Soul Child is an interesting choice. I would say yes, he is kind of forgotten. I don't hear his name
mm,
mentioned, especially considering the substantial. I mean, he's had some substantial hits.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna say Billy Ocean. I never hear
Yeah,
anybody talk about Billy Ocean, the UK artist. I
yeah,
mean, I think.
he's known here though because he's British. We
Oh,
still celebrate him out here. So
well, that's the
you
good thing about
mentioned,
overseas. You guys
yeah,
do celebrate our
yeah, we
artists, and
still
I so
celebrate him out here. I mean,
yes. But in
he's
America, it's like once you're dead, you're done. You're done.
yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah, no, no, and it's because you mentioned um, Terence Trent D'Arby being a British artist. We don't hear about him. I don't even know if he's still alive. But Billy Ocean. I
Right.
mean, we
He's
just
changed his name. He's still
oh, yeah,
alive. I think
okay.
he's making music under a different name.
Okay, but yeah,
I can't
Billy
pronounce the
Ocean,
name.
we still celebrate him out here. So
Oh yeah,
he's still releasing music. He looks completely different. He's got long
like
white
dreads or something.
dreads, yeah,
Right, right.
and stuff. So yeah, he's still celebrated
Yeah.
out here.
And that's the thing. I really in America we don't really talk about him, but he's has some big hits
Yeah,
here.
because in the
And I'm
80s he
wondering,
did
is
a
it
lot of stuff with soundtracks like I remember he did When the Going Gets Tough, and he had a lot of those
right?
crossover pop tracks. So he was very much a very crossover.
Yeah,
He
they probably
crossed
don't
over.
identify him as R&B, right?
So back in those 80s, the R&B music was very light touch,
Hmm.
where he was very much as I said, he was in a few. He performed soundtracks for a few Michael Douglas films, like um, and Caribbean Queen. You know,
Right.
if you think about Stevie back in those early '80s, it was very. It wasn't proper. It wasn't R&B soul, but it was very R&B popish. So it was. It
Mm,
could be on the charts. So that's how Billy were really massive. Yeah. Um,
yeah.
if Avant,
Yes. Good one.
the- and I'm saying this because a lot of artists who maybe not releasing a lot of music, or maybe they are, but they're very active on social media. They're doing the tours, so you can remember them and you say, yeah, they're still like Keith Sweat.
Right.
Every week he's on a tour. If you follow him on IG, he's headlining every city with somebody. I mean, I've never. He's probably, he's the number one booked artist when it comes to tours. I think Big Bub had a concern
Right.
about
Right.
that. I said, look, man, you guys need to remember that other artists, these promoters, just keep booking the same people. Because when Keith does
Right.
his show, he says, okay, still come along, or he gets his own guys. So he's always he's always working. But Avant, I barely see him anywhere. Don't see him. Even his social media account, he doesn't post anything of himself. He just posts all this
Right.
other stuff. So in a sense, it's like, yeah, I remember that guy, but I can't remember really what he's. I remember he looked like R. Kelly. He looked like a shorter version of R. Kelly. Sounded like R. Kelly.
Right.
That was how Avant, but he never came out to that R. Kelly look-alike, sound-alike sort of show.
Yeah. And that shadow. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's funny because I don't know. I mean, I feel like Avant is one of the. He's been very consistent. If you, I mean, I have all of his albums, and his albums are pretty consistent.
I had more
They're
than
pretty
one.
good. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So you said
Okay.
yeah, oh, you had, oh, you don't,
How do you know the first
well,
one? Separated.
so, well, yeah, he has a second album, Private Room, I believe. No, that's not the second album. That's the third album. I mean,
Wow. Okay.
he has some hits now, but
Okay.
yeah, but I think more so with his situation, and I may be wrong. I don't want to speak on it if I'm wrong, but I think he has some health issues, or at least he
Oh.
had some health issues.
Okay.
So I think he's working on those. But
Okay.
yeah, he's one that I definitely feel like isn't mentioned enough when we talk
Yeah.
about R&B, like Joe and Brian McKnight. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
he has had several hits, you know.
Mm.
So I'm going to say this one is a little left field. I don't know if everyone is familiar with this person, Michelle Ndege Ocello.
Yeah, I remember her
So
bald-headed. What's your girlfriend or something like that.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you know, I dig her. I like her style. She came out and she was just a very bold, like she was just very different at the time she came out. She was signed to Madonna's label, Maverick,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and she had that song. If that was your boyfriend, he wasn't last night. You know,
Yeah.
just. But and that was off her album, first album, Plantation Lullabies, which I thought this is interesting. It's different. You know, she wasn't much of a singer, but she played bass, she played instruments.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know, but her second album is really one that I actually bought, and I was really young. I think I was like 14 or something. But her second album came out called Peace Beyond Passion, and it was just a critical darling. Obviously, like a lot of people were, you know, praising it for all its musical influences and stuff. But it was a really good album, it was really deep.
Hmm.
But she never got that critical acclaim or that mainstream
Okay.
push like other artists like her at the time. So she's one that I don't hear a lot of people mention when we talk about R&B music, soul
Yeah,
music,
but I don't.
musicians in general.
Yeah, I don't know if I thought. So the '90s were very interesting. Where when I think about myself, I was very much Jodeci, R. Kelly,
Hmm.
SWV, and all that stuff. But I would be still rocking with my New Kids on no, no New Kids on Backstreet Boys, um, Blink 182,
Hmm.
No Doubts, you know. So um, I can't remember. There were so many of those because as I mentioned, I lived in LA and I lived at a beach. So all this, hey now you're all star, all those types of songs.
Right. It's
So
those
I was saddled
pop.
between the
Yeah.
two, but it was pop rock, but it wasn't, and yeah, even Nirvana and Pearl Jam. I mean, I
Mm.
worked at a record, Best Buy Records, in the music department, and I can still remember '97. So '97 when New Edition and Blackstreet came out with their albums, I was working in the Best Buy records label, record store. But
Hmm.
as much as I would see those ones, all Alanis Morissette,
Yeah.
Green Day, it felt more. It was we were so rich with music that I didn't pigeonhole myself in just the '90s R&B. As much as I loved it, I had probably five.
Right.
We talked about Columbia House and BMG. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah, I was buying, but I could enjoy both sets of music and stuff. So,
yeah. Hmm.
when we talk about Michelle de la Chelle, I think her first album was a nice crossover stuff. Like, oh, this is a nice track.
Hmm.
I think maybe by the time she came to the second album, which might have been more of what she wanted, I
Right.
think that's where sort of you lose the mainstream when you start to go the direction that you think works. And the labels back in those days
Right.
were, how do we sell volume? And and
Right.
and this,
I will agree she is probably a marketing nightmare,
yeah,
because it's like, how do you market? Who do you market her to?
me
How do you
too.
market her to?
Yeah.
And there's certain artists that are just like that. That how do you, what do we do with you? You know.
And yeah, if you don't stay, I mean, as I said, they had the whole neo soul stuff, and but they don't sell. They don't. They. It's about, we forget labels are not a charity; they're businesses. And
Right.
if you're selling a product that's not really people aren't buying, then you don't sell it anymore and buy. You find what else people want to buy. So
Right.
yeah, um, I think Indiari.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, she was that neo soul, head scarf and
Hmm.
the sort of like, I've just come out of Africa type of vibe, and well celebrated and stuff. And she was, are you ready to love? And she was
Right.
R&B,
Right.
but she
Video girl.
stayed in her R&B stuff, but crossed over. She was celebrated, but I don't know what happened where she did two or three good albums which were really
Right.
celebrated and really consistent. But I think the industry started shifting more to the hip hop collabo, and she just
Right.
wasn't part of that. It's different from somebody like, what's the name of the lady with the that married to Outcast guy, um,
Erica Badu.
Erica Badu.
I don't know that they
She
were ever married.
they weren't married.
She
They
is a
had they,
baby
they had a
mama,
child, seven.
but
They had seven. But she
Erica
she
is a proud baby mama.
yeah, oh yeah, many times. But she, even though she was neo soul, she was on the Roots, and she did stuff with Outkast. So she did stuff with Common. So she
Yeah,
sort of
she kept
kept
right.
herself relevant in that.
And
Just
she kind of like married herself with that hip hop. Like it
yeah,
always that hip
yeah,
hop
yeah.
kept her afloat.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
and
so
D'Angelo, he was still, then he just fell away and stuff. But someone like Indiari, I don't think she managed to really, like, how do you find a voice when hip hop was really taking over the
yeah.
airwaves, and a lot of the soul music and neo stuff was like, yeah, that was yesterday's stuff. So maybe that's one of the unfortunate things that stumped her
Yeah,
career. But
it's unfortunate. I mean, because we have artists like Tracy Chapman that their
yeah.
music is timeless. People still go to see her, and she doesn't have to have a hit on the radio or anything. And she's a hometown Tracy
Oh,
Chapman,
is she
Cleveland,
still
Ohio.
touring? Is she still
Yeah,
touring?
I love her music.
Yeah,
It's
no,
it,
she
but
she was different, but she was very, yeah, that was a long time ago. I mean, she must be like
yeah.
70 or something like that. Or 60. I
No,
don't
she's
know.
not 70,
Okay.
but she's up there, but she's doing it. She's doing her thing, and
Okay.
I don't know. It's something about her. Even every time she puts out something, I just still check it out. But
Okay.
um, but I feel like NDRE could have had that kind of career, but I don't think that the R&B audience does not treat their artists in that same way. So and
Yeah.
I just think she's talented, just like Michelle and Gail Cello. I think these are talented artists, but unfortunately, it's just hard to market them. And NDRE got caught up in the whole neo soul movement kind of dying out, and I
Yeah.
think she's unfairly grouped into those.
Yeah.
But so for me, I'm gonna say for I think one of my final artists is Immature. Just change uh, gears. You're probably thinking Immature, who?
No, but I thought
Immature.
it's a Mario. Was he not in Immature?
No, Omarion is
Oh,
in
B2K.
B2K. So
Who was
Immature
it
became
Immature?
before B2K.
Yeah,
Immature had Marcus Houston,
Marcus Houston.
right, Batman, basically. Anybody who
Yeah,
remembers the Immature group,
yeah, yeah,
Batman,
yeah,
and the one who was on the Sister show with the two twins, Tia and Tamara,
yeah, yeah.
and the other two guys, Romeo and LDB, and there was another art group member before that, Half Pint, which he
Okay.
kind of got the Destiny Child treatment. He got kicked out. I don't know what happened, but he's out of the group. They, but anyway, they were like the male version of TLC. Like, they sang, they rapped, they had to remember that raps, they had the crazy colors, the crazy outfits, and they
Yeah,
were
yeah,
good
yeah, yeah,
performers.
yeah, yeah.
And I think people don't mention them a lot because they were the predecessors to the B2Ks and all of that. Um,
Yeah, but
yeah, and I think they should be mentioned.
yeah, but I
Especially,
think
we talk about BBD, talk about
no,
Immature.
but the thing is, BBD still are together. You know, the whole New Edition stuff.
Hmm.
They're still together. You know, Poison came out in 1990. BBD were performing just 3 days ago,
Right.
so they're still together.
But
Image,
BBD only had like one hit album. Like they
yeah,
Immature had at
yeah,
least, I mean, they had two hit albums, but they've
yeah,
had success over all of the albums that had at least one song that
yeah. But then you
charted
also
the
have
whole
to
time.
remember that with BBD, they're still part of New Edition. So New Edition are the royalty of R&B today to a
Right.
generation from
But
the 80s
this
to
isn't an
now.
Immature
Yeah.
versus a BBD. I'm just
But
saying
no, but
that
when you think about
they should
Immature,
be
they're
mentioned a little
not
bit more.
together now. Marcus Houston, if they were
A lot of
together,
groups aren't together.
yeah. So we
You said
can't.
who isn't together?
No, if Marcus it was back with them, if they were touring, if they came out as Immature to do a tour, I think
Hmm.
I would be honest. A lot of people might not like Immature. Who are they? You know, I remember them. I
Right.
still remember the whites and crazy outfits and stuff, and
Right.
the songs. But I think B2K sort of
They're
took
not
over.
together either. They still talk about B2K.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
lot of groups that are not together, but they don't talk about them. I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of groups that are not together, but they still talk about them. But the point I'm trying to say is that I feel like that's one of those groups that does never gets mentioned in the 90s R&B realm. Like we talk about the Escapes, we talk about the Boys, the Men's, and all this, but they had success. They had platinum and gold albums as well, and
yeah.
they had a media. They also were featured in TV shows and different things. They were like before the instincts and all of that, they were the beginnings of that starting to happen
Well, but they were
for that
also
generation.
their age, right? They were like 14 kids.
But they were
So
younger
in
than that
obviously even
when they
younger.
came out.
So and I think when they came out, it was like we had some really heavy competition when it comes to R&B groups. That it was hard to really say, okay, who you could okay, this is nice little teeny bobby stuff, but I don't think consistently we were looking at them the same way. As who's gonna yeah
Maybe not the adults, but everybody remembers never. All the people from my era that grew up with them remember "I Will Never Lie." Constantly, we remember "We Got It." We remember these songs. We remember "Stay the Night." We remember when they became adults and they changed the name to IMX. So it's just
yeah
my thing is they don't get that same respect. But we'll go back and think about Soul for Real. Soul for Real like two songs, two hits. So it's just like, but it's certain people that for whatever reason they get mentioned in certain conversations,
yeah.
and
I mean,
I
you're
just think
right,
they don't
and I
get.
think they maybe I don't know if it's maybe the name change and stuff, but I
Yeah, it
don't
could have
know
been that. I think
that
that
I
was a bad
yeah
idea
yeah you just
to change
stick
their
with
name.
the it's different if you're calling immature doesn't yeah